Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and here's my question to you. What if the secret to great leadership is as simple as treating people with kindness, respect, and genuine hospitality? That's a powerful message behind today's guest, Taylor Scott. Now, Taylor is a best-selling author, inspirational keynote speaker, and organizational development consultant whose work is transforming the way leaders connect with their teams. With 2 decades of hands-on experience at some of the world's most renowned hospitality brands, including Disney, Parks and Resorts, Gaylord Hotels, Wynn Resorts, and the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, Taylor brings real-world stories and actionable insights to every conversation. His mission? To help you unlock your full potential, deliver your best, and create workplaces where people truly thrive. Now, he is passionate about inspiring leaders at every level, from Fortune 500 companies to universities and community organizations. If you're ready to lead with heart rather, and make a lasting impact, you won't want to miss this episode. So good morning, Taylor, and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. And thank you for sending your books, Lead with Hospitality and Give Hospitality to me. It's much appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to you, and good morning to everybody listening. Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. Listen, before we dive in, and you're going to be doing all the talking because I explained to you in the virtual green room, I'm losing my voice. It's only Monday and I'm already giving out here. So you get to do all the talking. But before we dive in, would you introduce yourself and share a bit about what inspires and motivates you to show up as you do?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Taylor Scott. I'm born and raised in Eastern Kentucky. Grew up like most of us do in Kentucky, loving basketball, um, and that really drove a lot of the things that I would do for fun and for hobbies. And then I was always around great coaches and great leaders and basketball camps in the summer and the off season. And so born and raised in Kentucky. And then when it came time to go to college, I wanted to go where we would always go on vacation to Walt Disney World down in Orlando. And so I was researching, great schools I could go to and potentially walk on the basketball team, but also schools that had a great business program. And ideally for me, I knew at a young age I wanted to be in and around the hospitality industry. So I chose to go to Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida. Great education, great experience, walked on the basketball team. Every summer in college, I worked a different role in the show, as they say at the Walt Disney Company. Over at Walt Disney World, I worked a different role in the show each summer in undergrad. And then when I got out, I spent several years working in the hospitality industry in Orlando, resort operations, sales and marketing. And then I left and went to graduate school up at the Cornell Hotel School. They have an MBA focused in hospitality. And so I did that program. And from there, I landed in Las Vegas. And I was the director of loyalty marketing, essentially, at Wynn and Encore. Was there during the opening of Encore, and then did pretty much the same role for 4 years for the opening in 2010. Scary time in our world, both in our industry and out. For the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, was there for 4 years before going back to Disney. But on the other coast, I led the sales team at Disney Vacation Club, based at the Disneyland Resort. And I just share all of that just to say, as an answer to your question, my favorite part about all those roles, all those career stops for those 20 years, were the times and were the days, or sometimes multiple days in a row, when my leaders or our organization would send me to leadership development workshops. And so it just hit me somewhere around, 2018, 2019. I'm like, man, I wish I could just do that for a living somehow, some way. And so just from starting out doing a lot of this stuff on the side, writing blogs, speaking on the side, in 2017, I started writing books, and sort of since 2019 did a career switch, and then through the pandemic, and then out of the pandemic came our first published book by an actual publisher, Lead with Hospitality, which you said you had on your desk and you read over the
Oh, I
weekend, which I
do.
appreciate.
Yeah, I read it
And
and I
so
reviewed it. So the other
Yeah,
one
thank
is
you.
not published just yet, so we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, so that's what we've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. That we are organizational development consultants, and so I started a company called Lead with Hospitality LLC, and companies will hire us to come in and either help their facilitators deliver leadership development content, culture cultivating experiences, or we will deliver them. It's myself plus 10 or 12 of my uh, colleagues and business partners, and it's our Lead with Hospitality team of facilitators, and they're all over the country, and they come from different backgrounds, and we just have a really diverse team, and we all love people, we all love leadership, and most of us have come from some element of hospitality, so we bring that into our work.
And I have to tell you, you and I talked about this, excuse me, in the pre-interview. Hospitality and leadership are not two words that you normally would toggle together. So I was instantly fascinated, saying, "Well, how did this happen?" And you and I talked, and I've got the other book. I wanted you to kind of give a quick review of Give Hospitality. And this one's a parable, which I happen to love. And I have a sneaky book on my desk. I'm not supposed to have it, I don't think, because it's not published yet. But it's an advanced review copy, so it's not sneaky. But this is called A Hopeful Story of What Happens When We Live, Work, and Love from a Place of Generosity. And this is the follow-up to Lead with Hospitality.
It is, and this journey started actually during the pandemic as well. I had gone through the process. Matt Holt with Matt Holt Books, which is an imprint of Ben Bella Books out of Dallas. That's my publisher. They had just welcomed me into their team. We had gotten Lead with Hospitality out the door. The pub date for that was April of 2021. And then we all can harken back and remember what was going on in 2021, and then
Right.
in the summer and all this stuff with COVID and 2020 and financial stuff and George Floyd. And I was just sitting, like many of us were sitting at home, and we were just like heartbroken with what was going on. And so, like a lot of us authors do, we pull out the laptop, pull up a Word document, and start writing. And so I just wrote a story of just to kind of escape, but also just thinking to myself, like, man, there's got to be a better way that we can all somehow get together and bridge our divides. And the more I thought about it, it really is generosity. Like at the root of it, it's taking the focus off of any oneself and then focusing on other people. And so this book just kind of had it was a few iterations. And it really started out as just as an escape. And then I thought, wait, I think maybe we have something here. And so what I wanted to do was do a really purposeful story that could not only resonate with emerging leaders, that's people that are just maybe getting into their leadership career, or maybe they haven't made the jump yet. But there's other people, those of us that have been out here for a while as a leader in different organizations, maybe on multiple different levels of leadership. And then perhaps this story might resonate with them as a way that they themselves can cultivate this type of a culture within their organization, within their team, that really does bring to life all of the magic, I believe, in things like generosity, love, and hospitality. So I did it on purpose, making this a little bit of a Hawaiian theme, because toward the latter toward the most recent iterations of the story and of my writing of the book, of course, in August of 2023, the wildfires happened over there in Lahaina Harbor on Maui, in over in the Hawaiian Islands. And like many people that may be listening, if you've been to Hawaii, especially if you've been to Maui, it's just a very special place. And my wife and I had the opportunity to do our honeymoon on Maui. And then during the pandemic, actually, we by the grace of God, I was like in between jobs, out of work, well, consistent work, and we got these great deals, and we figured out a way to get to Hawaii, 2 or 3 times. We went to Maui every time, so it's just a very special place to us. Has become my favorite place I've ever been. And so anyway, that just broke many people's hearts to see what happened to this beloved harbor town, Lahaina. So I chose to make this a story of a young up and comer named Summer Grace. And she leaves a toxic job with a toxic boss and a toxic leader. And she goes to work at a more magical place called Kauwela Resorts. And Kauwela means summertime in Hawaiian. And the story is of Summer Grace's first 2 weeks on the job. And the first week, she and her newfound friends and coworkers that are also joining the company, they were just to experience one of the resorts in the Calwela Resorts portfolio. Experience the shopping, dining, recreation, go to the pool, experience the restaurants, definitely experience the guest room, just to know what their guests are going to be experiencing. And then in week two, that's really the bulk of the story. In week two, I just paint the picture of what it was like for Summer Grace and her new colleagues to go through the orientation program. And each day of week two, they focus on talking about these, then have collaborative, what I call hospitality conversations, quote unquote, about the things that matter. And these things that matter are the Calwela Resort's values. And they are give compassion, give encouragement, give kindness, give hospitality, and give leadership. And so what I've done is I've chosen to have a G word, an I word, a V word, and an E word that will help all of us bring to life those things like compassion, encouragement, kindness, hospitality, and leadership. And so for those that maybe are not totally into reading these leadership books and self-help books, maybe a story would resonate with them, like many that have come before me. John Gordon, John David Mann and Bob Berg did The Go-Giver years ago, and it's still very popular. And so I wanted to potentially try to resonate with the Gen Zs and millennials that are potentially starting out in their career, but also those of us that have been out here for a while that might need a little bit of encouragement and hope, and just a look into what could be if and when we lead with and give hospitality.
Got it. And I have that book open right now, Give Hospitality, and you've got little lessons in each chapter, questions, answers. You've got like golden rule activity. My friend, I'll practice the golden rule with them by 1, 2, 3. My family member, I'll practice the golden rule with them by 1, 2, 3. And you give space for people to really think about that and answer it.
I do, and I'm a son of like a 27-year retired kindergarten teacher. I had my mom as my kindergarten teacher, and then both of my aunts were teachers for years. Both of my grandmothers, teachers for decades back in Eastern Kentucky, public school teachers. And so I've just always grown up around sort of this education environment. Also grew up going to church, and then like later in life, when I wanted to become a speaker and author, I started networking with authors and speakers that I really respected and admired. One of them was Mark Sanborn, and he was the guy that wrote
Yeah, I
the
know
New York
him.
Times.
Yep, I have
He's
his.
awesome.
He's been on my show. I know him.
Yeah, he wrote The Fred Factor, which my mom sent
He
to me
did.
when I was when I was opening Disney's Pop Century Resort as a front desk manager, and I got really burned out really fast. And I would call my mom like every day going home from work, and mom's like, sounds like somebody needs to take the focus off themselves and put it on other people. She said, I'm gonna send you something. And she sent me The Fred Factor, and I read it cover to cover faster than any book I'd ever read. And I absolutely loved it. Next thing I know, I'm buying copies of it for my entire team at Disney's Pop Century Resort. I started holding and I'm like 23, 24 years old at this point, and I'm holding these little lunch and learn sessions. Just man, my boss he was all over. He loved it. He's like, yeah, T Scott, go do what you do, man. Just go galvanize, go inspire people. And so we'd have like these groups of people come in, and we would read the Fred Factors together. But anyway, several years later, when I realized I wanted to start writing and speaking myself, I started a blog. And back in the day, it was called the One More Step Revolution. This idea that when you think you've done enough, go one more step for somebody or something. And anyway, I reached out to Mark Sanborn. Ready for this? Cold turkey. Back in the day, Facebook Messenger. Didn't know him. He didn't know me. And I wrote in his note, and I'm just like, you don't know me, but I've been, I read the Fred Factor, changed my life. I love You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. I love your work. And I'm like, I'm doing a blog, and I was wondering if it's okay with you, could I do a blog every Friday and call it Fred Friday and recognize a real life Fred out in the world? And he wrote me back. Not only did he write me back, this dude called me. Like he called my cell phone. And
Right.
anyway, that led to this relationship. And then I started blogging every Friday. I would do the Fred Factor thing. The Fred Friday thing. He would tweet it out and share it. And then we built a relationship. And he then started hiring me to go out and do Fred Factor keynotes on his behalf for
He's a great
clients
guy. Yeah, he is.
yeah.
Guy's a great author. I have, and I think I shared this with you, but I have over time interviewed a lot of the people from NSA, National The book people, the National Speakers Association. I'm losing my brain. I'm trying to breathe. But I had a similar thing with Larry Wingate. I've always liked Larry. I've had most of his books at the time. This is early on in my podcast. He didn't have as many as he does now, and he's since retired. But I did the same thing. I was about to just give up on this podcast. I didn't know how to get guests. I can't spend an hour talking about myself. I'm not that fun. And I got in touch with him on Facebook, told him that I had read this book, that book, and watched his, I think it was A&E program where he would just bust the bejeebers out of people who could not handle their money. And I did the same thing. You don't know me, but I've interviewed Bob Berg. I've interviewed, several of his speakers and friends. And I walked out. I went and stuck my head in the refrigerator because I was about to get sick at my stomach. I needed to cool down. And he sent me back a note. He said, sure, happy to. He's been on multiple times. You just have to ask.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing how humanness
Yeah,
really is this
they're
magical thing. And
great
so
guys.
where I was going with that is Mark taught me how to give keynotes. And one of the fundamental principles he taught me was to have this cadence of share the principle you're going to talk about, then have some illustrations, so tell some stories about it, and then always give some applications. Kind of like how I grew up going to church on Sunday mornings. There'd always be this like, 3-part sermon, and then it was all at the end, it was like, here's 3 applications to take with you this week. So that is what inspires how I go about doing my work, where I try to like, will make these principles, these leadership principles, these hospitality principles, really digestible, really accessible for people, but then also share just things that I've been taught and learned over the years from whether it be great brands, great teachers, great pastors, great coaches. And I try to give people these applications for how to bring them to life. And so that's where you see these end of chapter activities come into play, and also have an action plan that goes along with both lead with hospitality as well as give hospitality, which folks can download from our website, leadwithhospitality.com.
Got it. And one of the things that I'm back in lead with hospitality. And one of the questions, and I'm on page 59, and I had to double sticky this. I will not mark up books. I'm convinced that my my childhood librarian would rear up out of her grave and hit me. Do not mark books. I don't. But on page 59, you talk about vocalizing your understanding, and seeking to understand is half the battle. When I saw that, I wrote down on sticky curiosity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you,
Absolutely.
you have to be curious about the people standing in front of you, not in a rude way, like, what's your cat's name, or how many times you've been married. You need to empathy and curiosity will always move a conversation forward.
That's right. That's right. And then I've just found that, and I know many people listening, if you're probably thinking the same thing, is we just find out when we get out here in the real world, and things they don't teach you in school, things they don't tell you about before you take the job. But it really does come down to people. It's like the Walt Disney quote, you can build, create, and design the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. Well, if you and I are going to be successful leading people and inspiring people and motivating them to do more, become more, and ultimately deliver their absolute best work, then first we got to make sure we connect with them on a human level. And I've just found that empathy in these moments, especially the moments when it gets heated, especially when times are a little bit stressful, um, empathy like that, when we can pause, when we can stop, we can take a deep breath and actually seek to understand from them, asking great questions. What's going on? How are you feeling? Why do you feel that way? Help me understand. And then when we turn around and summarize for them what they've just told us, it's kind of like Anna from Frozen when she's like, for the first time in forever.
Hmm.
I just see it. I know people listening, and maybe you felt it too, when you can just almost see somebody light up and they look at you like, literally, for the first time in forever, I'm either working with someone or I have a leader that took the time to actually seek to understand what I might be thinking or feeling.
And that's important. And I think so many people, we're always in a rush all the time. And it's so easy to just say, okay, I used to be really bad about this because I'm an A-type personality. I'm an introvert and I need to be left the heck alone 98% of the time. But I was also an A-type personality who's basically, just do what you're told, though nobody gets hurt. That was failing me badly, really badly. I was losing my team. My business was about to go under after only a year old. And I had to sit down with myself and say, what are you doing? And once I figured out that I was not employing empathy or curiosity, I was just barking commands, that changed. Everything
Absolutely.
changed.
Hmm.
But you have to recognize that you're doing it. That's the part that has you sitting underneath the dining room table, rocking back and forth and keening with your thumb in your mouth. It's not fun, but you have to do it. You have to get past that.
Absolutely. And that's what I found is like until they can trust you, until they can see
Exactly.
you as a human being just like they are, it's harder. It's harder to have them listen to any feedback or coaching. And that's really why I structured Lead with Hospitality the way that I did. If you notice, there's 4 parts in the book: connect, serve, engage, inspire, in that order. So if you think about it, how often have many of us in our leadership careers, how often have we, gotten into the leadership role, or we've joined a new company as a leader or manager or director or VP of something, and we get in there, we're so excited, and it's coming from a good place, and we start coaching and inspiring right away before we've successfully connected,
They
before
don't
we've
trust you yet. They have no reason to trust you.
correct, correct.
Okay, keep
And
going.
yeah, and so that's where this was all born. Um, Kind of like how when we go visit our favorite hospitality destinations, Maui, Waikiki, Walt Disney World, Disneyland, whatever, Las Vegas, whatever that is for you and your family, or that your favorite hospitality brands. Like right now, I'm joining you from a Marriott hotel in Denver. I'm here for working with a client all week here in Denver, and so I always choose to stay at Marriott's. I'm brand loyal. Well, in the same way that we always go back to and want to stay with those brands or those destinations we love so much, the same principles apply with for us as leaders. Because 9 times out of 10, people will make decisions and they will choose to stay. They will choose to not only join you, but they'll choose to stay where they feel. The F word is okay at work these days. Feeling, where they will feel what I say is welcome, comfortable, and important. And so that's really where a lot of my curiosity was way back during 2018, even 2019, when I started my career switch. And I started this whole Lead with Hospitality thing started as a passion project, on the side. And I was researching, why is it people love their favorite leaders? Why is it people love their favorite brands? And the deeper and deeper and deeper I got into my research, it really just kept just showing up. It just kept showing itself. Literally, it was all about how people were made to feel, whether it was a leader or a brand. And so that's why I've sort of structured this thing the way we have.
Well, and that makes sense to me because honestly, we do find people like I've shared this with you and the audience. I read everything. I'll read the back of a cereal box. I don't eat cereal, but if that's all that's handy, I'll read the ingredients. But trust is something that has to be earned, as far as I'm concerned. So I learn about you, the person, by reading your work, by listening to you on podcasts, or having you come on my podcast. And once I get very comfortable with you, we're friends forever. And I think that's kind of a short way to say what you just said.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I was in a leadership workshop as a participant years ago. This is well over 10 years ago, but I remember this one key thing, and I remember writing it down. I was this young up and comer, and this guy was up there talking about trust, literally this topic, talking about trust. And he wrote on the whiteboard, ready, respect plus credibility equals trust. And that has always stuck with me. So as long as we can somehow, some way, how long the interactions are, if we can respect the other person on the other side of the phone call, the other side of the table, or the other person in the conversation, And if we can, sort of display that we sort of know what we're doing, we have some competence in any given area by sharing stories of where we've been, who we've helped, who we represent in the past and then now. That gives us that credibility, that street cred, and both of those very simple yet hugely impactful things, respect and credibility, will always equal trust.
I agree with you. You mentioned just a little bit ago that great leaders connect on a human level, excuse me, before inspiring action. And I wrote down, can you share a personal story or an example where this approach made a very real difference in a team or an organization, one that stuck with you all this time?
Yeah, for sure. I remember I was on the opening team at Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center down in Orlando. It was 2002, 02, 02, 02. Ready? February 2nd, 2002 at 2:02 p.m. Fireworks in the atrium. Like, it was this grand opening. And if you remember, it was only a few months after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001.
Right.
And so that was a big deal. It was a brand new hotel opening in the vacation kingdom that is Central Florida, and it was a convention property. And so anyway, I was there as a young up and comer, as my first actual full time leadership job. Coming out of you know back to back to back to back internships at the Walt Disney World Resort. But then I couldn't get on full time because they just froze everything because of 9/11. But anyway, there I was 22 years old, housekeeping manager on the opening team, and I had great leaders. One of them's name was Ralph, the other one's name was Dave. And talk about humanness. Like, here's a 22-year-old me, and I had my bosses that were, in their early, mid, late 30s, and they had been doing this for years. And so I looked up to them professionally and respected all that they'd done all around Orlando, working in resort operations for different brands. And they welcomed me in. They invited me to play basketball, pick up basketball with them after work. The director of housekeeping was Dave, and Dave knew I loved basketball, and he loved basketball, and he's a big Orlando Magic fan. I was a big Orlando Magic fan, and so my director of housekeeping and I went in together and got a 10-game season ticket package to the Orlando Magic. So I was going to basketball games with my boss's boss, my direct boss, Ralph. He was the executive housekeeper. He and I were just me and him, because I was young. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. I didn't even have a girlfriend. And he and I, pre-opening of that property, we would be in the exhibit hall where they had like boxes upon boxes upon boxes of all this stuff, that was to ultimately eventually be put in the guest rooms, 1,400 guest rooms. We're
I
talking like
know. Those
everything
things are
from,
huge. I know.
yeah,
I
everything
like
from like
Gaylord.
bedspreads and pillows and clock radios and right down to the shower hooks. Well, our team had to be the people to get them from all of those boxes in the exhibit hall, unpack them, and then somehow, strategically in an organized chaos fashion, get all the things into the guest rooms and then put all the rooms together. And you talk about humanness. It's just like, I remember Ralph, he was my boss, and we would just be in there collaborating together, and he would show me his humanness by just saying how frustrated he would be, and this is really daunting. And I just thought to myself, man, this guy's a human being just like I am. And it made me want to help him. It made me want to collaborate with him. It made me want to step up and give all that I could to help all of us get this project done on time and on budget. And so that's one where I would say that humanness is that stuck with me for well over 20 years now. And I heard Mark say one time in a keynote, great leaders are not great because of their leadershipness. Great leaders are great because of their humanness. And when I heard him say that up on this great, big stage, it was a great big, keynote with thousands of people, and I was just like, man, that makes so much sense, because I immediately thought of Ralph and Dave.
And so many people, and I just had a random thought while you were talking about, I think it was Dave that was kind of complaining or voicing his concerns. And too many people, the more you get kind of caught up in something, you get a little bit tired or frantic. All you hear is whining. You don't really hear what's going on behind the comment. You just, it can be a knee-jerk reaction like, oh, I wish he'd shut up. I've done it myself. But that's not what you heard.
No, it was just being human. It was just being real. And what we see, though, and that's really the point, is if somebody's out here listening and you're in a leadership role, whether it's a frontline leader, middle management position, or an executive position, leader of leaders type role, organizational leadership, is if you try to fake it till you make it, like if you try to pretend like everything's perfect and pretend like you're not frustrated ever, and well, we can all see through that, and
Mm.
like we can all smell it, and so it's gonna set you back even further in terms of building that respect and building the credibility with those people, whether you're working with them or you're trying to lead them. So we might as well just be ourselves. And Brene Brown, of course, made vulnerability famous, with all of her work in, helping us all see that in the old days, when we would share our vulnerabilities or share the things that we were struggling with, we thought it would make us look weak. But instead, it can really be a superpower. And the reason is because it levels the playing field. It just makes the other people around us feel like, all right, this dude might have the title, or she might have the title of a VP or a director, but she's just as human as I am. And let me lean in a little bit. Maybe this will work out.
When I first started my career, my web development company, I was so driven and so focused. I was barely human. And I recognize that now. It didn't take me all that long to recognize I was going to go broke very quickly if I didn't find my head and pull it out of whatever receptacle it was residing in. But I had to really sit down with myself and say, you can't just boss people around. And I wasn't even looking at the word that you just used. I just knew that I had to be more human because I'm not a mean person, but I was coming across like one.
Yeah, we all go through that, and that's really why I'm trying to do what I'm doing, which is if we can, and like just like your work with what you've done, and congrats by the way on the success of your podcasts and the
Thank you.
and the stick to itiveness, we'll call it. But like if we can, you and I and all of us out here doing this work, if we can help the up and comers, or if we can help revive and give a little bit of hope and encouragement to some seasoned leaders out there. If we reach one person, I always say if this blog post, if this podcast, if this book can help change the mindset or heart set of one person, if it can help one person potentially miss some of these frustrations and heartbreak that I had to go through because I didn't realize what I now realize, then this all will have been worth it.
Oh, exactly. And what is that old saying? And I know I'm going to butcher it, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's what we do. We may,
I like
we
that.
may not be trying to say, well, I'm going to teach you this, that, and the other, pay attention. But if you just said something that resonated with somebody, or I did, we have not spent an hour in vain, have we?
That's right. That's right.
Excuse me. Okay, you often talk about the peaks and valleys of your career, and you've had some. So, what's the most important lesson you've learned during challenging time? And I think you talked a little bit about one, at Gaylord. I love Gaylord hotels. My favorite one is not too far from. Oh, sorry, I just had a brain freeze. I was there visiting my sister. She was there for business, and we went to the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh,
And my
nice.
sister,
Nashville.
we were in Nashville, and my sister, we're born and raised in California, but I got out of there when I could. I'm a Southerner. I wasn't born a Southerner, but I've been here almost all my life, to be honest, and I am a Southerner by heart. My sister is not. She's California. That's just all there is to it. And we couldn't get seats together. I'll never forget this. And we were so enamored with the Gaylord that we were kind of sad we had to leave to go down the road and go to the Grand Ole Opry. And I was talking during there was a pause there where go to the bathroom, the whole thing. And I feel this tap on my shoulder. My sister was she was a row above me, but a couple people over. And I looked at her, she said, "Do you know those people?" I said, "No." "Why are you talking to them? You're in the South. You have to talk to other people. We're friendly. We're curious. We want to know." I mean, it's a better way to live.
It is totally. That I love that you said that, better way to live. Like I've always thought that, and I often say that leading with hospitality is not only, I believe, the right way to lead, it's just a more inspiring and fulfilling way to live.
It
So
is. It
to answer,
really is.
yeah, to answer your question, the biggest challenges, the biggest I eye openers, if you will, is really just this idea. Ready? Like IQ will help you get the job, but EQ, emotional
Mhm.
intelligence,
Emotional
will
intelligence,
help.
right.
Yeah, it'll really make you a star. And that's the Daniel Goleman quote, where IQ can get you the job, but EQ will get you will make you a star. And I kind of have my own version of that, where IQ will get you the job, but a lack of EQ, a lack of emotional intelligence, can get you fired.
Oh,
And it comes down to
absolutely.
yeah, there's four components of emotional intelligence. It's self-awareness. How well do we know ourselves? How well do we know our strengths? How well do we know what gets us down, what motivates us, what inspires us? Number two is self-management. How well can you and I remain calm and remain at an even keel and never get too high, never get too low? And self-management is also that internal drive, like to be able to get out of bed and do it anyway, to go work out even when we don't feel like it, to go have the tough conversation when we don't feel like it. Number three is social awareness. And that's our ability to leverage this leadership skill, which I didn't even realize was a leadership skill until I got into doing what I'm doing now, 5 or 6 years ago, which is literally empathy. So social awareness is our ability to read the room, to not only understand our own emotions, but to be able to pick up on emotional cues of others, and then leverage that knowledge of how to read the room so that we can get people to work together and create something special. You put all three of those together. You put self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness together, and you get relationship management. So there's a lot that goes into all of those, but I believe that's been my biggest learning. Is I'm pretty smart always. I always worked harder than everybody else, but I found out the hard way that that stuff doesn't matter unless you can connect with people on a human level. And that takes practice. It takes messing up. It takes being humble and getting humbled, and then doing your work on yourself. And it's this idea that I call striving for self-mastery. Because before we can successfully lead other people, we got to figure out how to lead ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And I will tell anybody, because I coach a lot of people that want to become a podcaster. And one of the first things I will ask them is, can you sit down and shut up? And they say,
Interesting.
what? Yeah, because if you're not listening, if you don't have curiosity, if you don't have empathy, you're not going to hear anything they've got to say. You can't coach them,
That's
you
right.
can't mentor them. You need to sit down and shut up.
That's right.
I know that sounds brutal, but that's the way it is. You've earned degrees from Florida Southern College and Cornell's Nolan School of Hotel. It mentioned that. How has your education influenced your work and your writing?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, Florida Southern College was a great education in undergrad. It just got some notoriety. I think it was number four on some list, most beautiful schools in the South or something like that. It's the largest single site collection of Frank Lloyd Wright architecture in the world. Most of the buildings were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And it's just not only is it a beautiful campus, we just had really great professors. It was just a really neat business department, because a lot of those professors had been in business. They've been in business and industry, whether as an entrepreneur or working in corporate America. And then they went, and at a certain point in their life, they went and did the PhD thing, and then they just landed in Lakeland, Florida, and they poured into us. And I just thought it was great. So that was great, having great professors. I loved being 900 miles away from my hometown. Although it was tough my freshman sophomore year, I got homesick a lot. I did go home a lot. I went through those growing pains, but it allowed me to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so making friends with people from all over the place, um, at that young age, whether it be Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, we had students all from all over the world coming over studying here, like in their studying abroad program. They would be from like Italy and France. And so it was just, and then also the Walt Disney World experience, being able to be in that community and that diverse, the diverse atmosphere over there. Again, people from all over the world. And so you end up just learning more and more and more from different backgrounds. And the Cornell thing was just amazing, because that was neat, because I had, graduated undergrad. I had worked for about 6 years in actual jobs, learning the hard way a lot of these lessons. And then I went back cold turkey, boom, just left the Walt Disney Company, had a great job, lived in a great community in Orlando. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, really? What was wrong with that kind of thing? But no, it really pushed me when I got up to Cornell, because it just was another level. It was another level of people from all over the world, another level from learning from people that had also been out working a little bit and decided to do the go back to school thing. And then the professors there are amazing. Like, it's Cornell for a reason. It's known as one of the top, hospitality schools in the world for a reason. And it really comes down to just a passion and a commitment to all things hospitality. So a combination of those things, both at the undergrad level and the grad school level, it really was the people, and it was not only the people, but it was what they had done prior to getting into academia, that really made the conversations and made the teachings and made the coursework, that much more practical for me. And it allowed me to just crystallize the vision that I had for what I needed to do, and how I could potentially continue to grow in my life and career.
And that makes sense. And I actually had written a question for someone new to your work. What's the first step you'd recommend for leaders who want to start leading with hospitality? But then I answered the question all by myself because I opened to Lead with Hospitality, page 44. And it's an action plan to lead with hospitality, and it starts with connect. Do you have time to go through that chapter a little bit with me?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Okay, you say to connect with each individual on your team by scheduling weekly one-on-one meetings. I think that's important. I really do. But don't waste the team members' time by going in unprepared. Be genuinely interested in learning more about them with questions ready to go to keep your conversation flowing. Sounds like a podcaster. But you've got I don't even know, I didn't count them. You have a whole heck of a lot of questions that you can ask. So
Absolutely.
you really want to connect with them. And when I say connect, don't be nosy. Nobody, look, I'm in the South and people down here are nosy. I learned a long time ago to just deflect. One of my favorite
Yeah.
things, if somebody says something to me that I think is just way out of line, I'll look them dead in the eye and say, why do you ask? Well, that
Hmm.
shuts them up.
Hmm.
But, there's connecting and then there's just being nosy for the sake of being nosy. So draw that line.
Yeah, this was really inspired by a lot of those years working at Disney, and then also when I made my career switch, getting into some of the consulting work, and then facilitating some of these leadership development workshops that I started to do back in 2018, 2019, and then ultimately have started, our own consultancy. And that's the bulk of what we do is we'll create and design these leadership development, we call them live learning experiences, so that we can bring these topics up and we can use the wisdom in the room and get them to open up and start sharing with people. So I was hearing from a lot of leaders. I was hearing from a lot of people just how tough it was with, man, I'm really going through a lot of, this is a really rough season with my own boss right now, and we're not really seeing eye to eye. Or they would tell me about, man, so and so on my team, I had just a problem child. Now I'd ask them one question, ready? And I still do it today. It's funny. I'm doing this whole week here, and this will probably come up this week multiple times where somebody will be very passionate. They'll be having a problem with somebody, and I'll ask them one question. I'll say, whether it was with their leader or somebody on their team that they're leading, I'll say, when was the last time you had a one-on-one meeting with that person? And there'll be just this like awkward, dead silence. And then they'll answer, well, I mean, it was probably a couple months ago. And it
So that
always
means
just
it was
kind
a
of,
year or two ago.
yeah. And for me, this was something I learned again at that young age, to your earlier question at Disney. At Disney, this is like church, like they don't miss it. Like, and it didn't matter. I had the opportunity to be an hourly cast member, multiple different locations, had the opportunity to be like what they call a guest services manager. That's a first level frontline leader, salary leadership role that leads hourly cast members and people, process, product, that whole thing. And I also had the opportunity to be a leader of leaders. So sort of that middle management role. And so I was exposed to now directors and VPs and these executives. I would be in those meetings. I would report to these people. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether I was an hourly cast member, a frontline leader, a middle management role, or a leader of leaders at the organizational level, like I was at Disneyland. They don't miss their one-on-ones. And if your leader had to miss, or if they were somehow had a scheduling conflict. I mean, I'm talking like it was weekly. Like to this day, this has been like 20 plus years ago. My one-on-one with my leader at Disney's Pop Century Resort was on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Like I literally remember that to this day. And so what do the principle, the takeaway, that's an illustration of the culture in any work location, the relationship with any one person's leader, or as a leader, the relationship that you can have with the people that you're leading, everything changes when when you have what I call a commitment to connection first. And that means being intentional, and that means being purposeful and carving out the time, putting it on the calendar, and just commit to it. And during that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 1 hour, it really is an opportunity to do a few things. You connect with them even more personally, find out more about their personal life. I know it can get icky, and maybe some people aren't as comfortable with that, and that's okay. But just you let them know you're there. You let them know that that is open to them. Um, if they want to go down those roads, and it can be as simple as, to your point, just asking them questions. Like I remember back, like my leaders would ask me, "All right, T, what do you like to do when you're not here?" And for me, it was like watching basketball, playing basketball, going. And then the older I got, going to lobby bars, going to, the beach, going on vacation. So they started to learn those things about me. And then it helped them lead me better. And then going deeper. All right, T, what do you want to do with your career? Where do you want to go as your next step? And then this was, I always thought was magical. Well, if you had a leader that was like not only asking you, what do you want to do and where do you want to go next? But that person that would look you back in the eye, not only they write it down, but they would look you back in the eye and say, you know what? All right, well, it's my job to help you get there. That
Uh-huh.
changed the entire game. So
Yep.
now day to day, working for those people, and working with that person, it's like you always knew that, like, this really crazy Sunday morning, big checkout, working at a big resort, and it's brutal, by the way. 95 degrees, 1,000 checkouts. There's bags everywhere. There's sweat flying. People are upset. Guests are upset. But you have to be magical. Well, it makes it all worth it to know that you got a leader that has your back, and that you've got a leader that's grooming you and helping you get to that next level in your career. And you can't really do that unless you spend the time finding out from the other person. So that's where this all comes from, is first connect, and then you'll see, and you'll realize that leading them doesn't necessarily get easier, but it certainly opens the door for a more, we'll call it just a more harmonious relationship as you both grow together.
Exactly. And I have to ask you this. It's not written down. It just popped into my head actually a couple of times, but I'm convinced that you and everybody on this planet has come across one or more people that they just can't stomach for whatever reasons. There are always going to be people that you're just never going to be able to get along with, no matter how hard you try. What do you do in situations like that? Me, I just cut them loose, but I'm brutal. You're a much nicer person than I am.
No, I mean, I'm not above that. No, no. I
Okay,
used to do that a
I
lot
feel
more.
better.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot more, and I'm, if I'm being honest, I'll be vulnerable. I'll practice what I preach. I'm still hanging on to stuff that people have upset me in the past. They betrayed me in the past, and I'm doing that work right now. I mean, as we speak. But I'd say a couple things, like having a bad, like, anybody listening right now, if your boss is a jerk, or if you're just coming out of a season where you had a really, really brutal, toxic work situation, those experiences are still valuable. And
They
many
are.
would tell.
You don't like them. You didn't like them then. You don't like them now. And I can hold a grudge like nobody's business if I feel like it. But I did learn from them. At least I hope I did.
Yeah, because we learn what not to do. We
Yep.
learn what doesn't work. We learn what turns people off, and so that's one thing I would say is you can find purpose, you can find meaning even in the most annoying toxic situations if you look at it that way. Look at all the things I'm learning not to do. The other thing is it's also a huge opportunity. And I don't know if you've experienced this before with any certain individual, if anybody listening, if you can think about somebody maybe on the surface you thought was an absolute jerk, or you thought was very toxic, but then for some reason you chose to take a deep breath. You chose to give it a beat. You chose to give it a minute, and maybe you even try to be the person to connect with them when nobody else would. That I've also run into as well, where I thought this person was going to be a complete jerk, but then the more I like put my ego aside and didn't try to win any given conversation or didn't try to win any given argument, if you will, or disagreement, but instead just really um, this I'm a Christian. I come from like a faith background. So like when you do like the 7 mile walk with somebody and you do make it about them and you just kind of start getting curious, like you said earlier, and just building a relationship, building rapport. I've run into that as well, where you almost see it in them and you see in their eye, and they're looking at you like, are we connecting right now? Because maybe they're not used to that. Maybe
They
they've been
probably
burned before.
aren't. Yeah.
That's right. And what you
Although I have
find
come
is,
across people that I still can't stand them. I don't think about them, but they are off of my Christmas card list. I won't have anything to do with them. Not that many, maybe 4 or 5, but they can never come around me again, ever. And I'm very clear on that. But why would I do it? There was no redeeming reason to be in contact with this person or people. So I just don't.
well, that's the decision we all have to make, and I'm just saying that it could be that maybe that person hasn't had anybody like you before in their life.
Yeah, yeah. I know what
Maybe
you're
they haven't
saying.
had it.
Did I lose you?
Nope,
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
keep
still
going.
here.
I know what you, I interrupted you, so tell me, finish your thought there.
Yeah, and so maybe we can be that person in that other person's life to help them see that maybe human connection is a thing. And so that's the second thing I would say is that there's an opportunity there if you choose to do it. And we don't have to, but it's just always there. And we get to be, I love what Mel Robbins is saying out here. She's given us this tool. She's given us this, the let them theory, as a way to just reprogram our brains and reprogram how we show up. And I love her work. I love what she's done with it. And it's blown up. The let them theory is doing great. But she made a comment on a podcast I heard her say once. It's like it's amazing how a tough relationship changes when she said she shows up to that relationship differently. So we have that opportunity if we want it. And that's the cool thing about the let them theory. What she teaches us is if somebody's annoying, let them. If your parents aren't doing what you let them. If that other person, if your spouse keeps doing and you wish they would, just let them. And then the second part is the most important. And then let me decide how I want to move forward. And to your point,
Exactly.
you
Yep.
you can decide not to go down that road, or you can choose to throw out the olive branch and sort of be that person.
Yeah, I've
But if
done both.
ultimately
But
the
it
third
takes
thing is
thought.
if
It takes, you have to really think about it and determine how willing, how far are you going to go? And what are you going to do to show up? And that's the hard part. How am I going to show up and try to be helpful? Or do I even want to?
yeah, that's why another reason why I like the framework and the order in which I put things with lead with hospitality and we have 6 virtues. It's connect, strive for self mastery, serve, engage, coach, and inspire. And
Mm,
in a perfect world, in that order, connect, commitment to connection. While I'm committing to connect with other people, I'm going to strive for self mastery myself, because as I'm connecting, to your point, I'm going to realize things like, well, that person's really annoying, or boy, they really get on my nerves, or man, I get really frustrated really quickly in this type of situation, so I got to work on that.
You
And
know
then
who annoys me the
serving.
most? Me. I annoy the crap out of myself every once in a while. And then I just start laughing. It's all you can do.
Yep, absolutely. And then serving people selflessly when we just choose to serve anyway, even when it's difficult, even when it's not our favorite, even when it's inconvenient, serve anyway. And if we've done that for people on our team, for example, that might be jerks. If we've done that for leaders or partners, that might be jerks, or those people that get under our skin. And then
Right.
we've even engaged with them. We've been generous with our time, with our talent, with our heart. We've shown up with a sense of purpose, and we've recognized them. We've given them recognition, let them know, hey man, I see you, or I see you, my leader. I see how you're, even though they're annoying, I see you. And then if we've done those four, connected, we strive for self-mastery along the way, we're serving, we're engaging. And at that point, especially if it's somebody you're leading, or if it's even a peer, if they're still, to your point, if they're still being difficult, well, then we've already sort of met them where they are, and they're the ones
Mhm.
that are choosing. So
Yeah.
now it's time for
Yeah.
us to coach. Now we can give them feedback, and then we can try to inspire them. And then, like, there's a leader that I had years ago, over 10 years ago, and I didn't really love this leader at all, but I loved this one thing, this literally one piece of feedback he gave me. Because I went to him actually, and I was like, dude, I'm like, man, I'm doing all this and that and trying to connect with these people, and I'm pouring my heart and soul out. And like these few people were just giving me just absolute hell. Like they just refused to. I was 35 years old. It was 10 years ago. So I was 35 years old. They were much older than me. They just refused to, you know, accept the fact that I was actually their boss at the time. And so they would just give me a hard time, and they wouldn't do anything. And I was telling my boss about this. It was actually an executive, my boss's boss. And he told me, he's like, all right, Taylor, I've watched you and you have done the work. He's like, you've been vulnerable, you've connected with them, you've served them, and you've done all these things. And he's like, it's okay that if you've done all of these things, it's okay for you to tell those people that are giving you a hard time and they're not being open, like I've tried, and so I'm going to let you guys be, and I'm going to go over here to all these 15, 16 other people who actually want to get better, these 15 or 16 other people on our team who actually want to work with me and want to help our team, get better. And that stuck with me even though I didn't like the guy. That advice really stuck with me, and it speaks to what you're saying about we can't change people fully and wholly, and they got to make that decision on their own. But how we show up matters, and we also get to choose when we felt like we've done all the work and it's still not getting anywhere. Then we can reprogram and we can redirect and put our heart and soul into people who actually want to change.
Absolutely. And I have to ask you this, 3 or 4 people, did they once you just kind of said, "Okay, y'all go sit in the corner. We'll just be over here doing our thing and making a lot of money and a lot of great decisions, but you just do you and we'll be over here doing us." How many of them did they decide, "Huh, well, maybe I actually do wanna join?"
Yeah, it was in back then. I don't know that I got it, like I do now. I don't all the way get it still. I'm still working on things, but I get this type of stuff
Psychology.
more.
It was
Yeah, I get
psychology.
it.
You faked them
Yeah,
out.
I get it more now than I did then. But as I look back, I've often thought about that's a good question. I've actually thought about that, and you know how you run things back in your mind. And I do recall, I really do. It's kind of like dating. It's kind of like playing hard to get, which is kind of weird, and you know. But yeah, when you like, all right, you like, go do you.
You
It's
go do
funny, and I
you,
would,
I'll be me. Don't send me any Christmas cards, we're good.
yeah, and I would remember those people. Then they would just like stop by my desk. They would stop by my office. Hey T, how are you? I'm like, okay. So they started to come back, and yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
human nature. It's just this cat and mouse. And for me, I just hate those games though. I just really do. And so that's why even though it can get messy, in the middle, as you grow relationships, these are the types of things, these are the tough conversations that many of us will shy away from. But there's way more breakthroughs that can happen. And I believe we can take people further quicker when we just meet the moment, when we meet people where they are, when we go through these steps, connect, self mastery, serve, engage, coach, and then people are ready to be inspired to do it differently or change directions, change behavior.
Absolutely. We are just about out of time, so I have to ask, what's next for you? Are there new projects, books, or initiatives on the horizon that you're excited to share with our audience?
Yeah, we have Give Hospitality, that hopeful story of what happens when we live, work, and love from a place of generosity. So that comes out July 8th, 2025. And so we're excited about literally giving. that message. And I'm prepared to, like, I'm buying a bunch of my own, as authors, we've got to buy our own book and give them to people to get things
Yeah.
going. So like
It's a
all
great
these.
business card, seriously. People say, I'm writing a book. It's a really expensive business card, but do it.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do with the book is a couple things, not only to connect with and have it resonate with these leaders out here, and open up different ways we can, have conversations with each other and with our teams to build a positive culture, I believe rooted in hospitality and generosity, but also, like I mentioned before, it does have a Hawaiian theme, bringing to life the aloha spirit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to donate a portion of the proceeds from the book, a portion of the proceeds from any work that comes our way with the Give Hospitality Project. I'm going to donate that to help with the relief efforts over in Maui for the Maui Strong Foundation and some of the other organizations over there working to build back Lahaina Harbor. Last fall, I also joined I became a franchisee. We have a travel agency franchise now through Dream Vacations. Parent company is World Travel Holdings, based in Fort Lauderdale. And we have Lead with Hospitality Travel Group by Dream Vacations. And that is another purposeful way that we're hoping that we can help incremental guests, customers, and clients go visit. We can help bring more people to Maui, bring more people to the Hawaiian Islands, and or help you out there, your friends, customers, clients of ours, our own friends and family. We want to help more people go to these hospitality destinations that we love, because we know that the more people we can send to these destinations, it will ultimately help the people that work in the hospitality industry, that make their magic wherever they are, from Walt Disney World, Disneyland, over in the Hawaiian Islands, and especially all of these cruise ships and cruises blowing up now in a good way. So we're excited about Lead with Hospitality Travel Group by Dream Vacations. We're excited about Give Hospitality. I'm going to be in Hawaii for about 10 days next month in June, making some relationships, talking to some people who have shown interest, not only in our book, but in our work. And so I'll share with the audience here, if you lead a team, if you're in an organization that does leadership development work and training, that's what we do. And we can come in and be partners of yours, like we are with many of our current clients, United Airlines, for example, Montage Resorts, Choice Hotels, the Statler Hotel at Cornell University, and several more that we've worked with. Dartmouth Health, if you're in healthcare, we're now working in that space now. So we can write it, we can create it, we can design it, we can come in and help you deliver it. Or I can just be a resource for you, as a guest speaker or a keynote speaker at any one of your events.
Well, listen, you've got my schedule link, so jump in there and get yourself scheduled for July or even early August when that book is out. I've got it, but I would love for you to come back and share with people exactly what you've been talking about.
Awesome. I'd love to.
Okay, great. Well, Taylor, that brings us to the end of our time together. I always say that this is the quickest 60 minutes on the internet. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights from Lead with Hospitality. And the next time you're here, we'll talk about Give Hospitality. So before we say goodbye, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement to our listeners? And if people want to connect with you or learn more about your work, where can they find you?
I'd say just be human, emotionally connect with people, emotionally connect the people on your team to your mission, to your brand's cause, and then serve people selflessly. Just serve them. Serve them. If you wake up one day and you're like, "How do I serve today?" Just remember LEAD, the acronym LEAD: listen, educate, act, and deliver. And you can reach me
Right.
at Taylor at leadwithhospitality.com. You can visit us at leadwithhospitality.com. There's resources on there. I'd love for you to visit us there, download the action plan for the Give Hospitality Action Plan. You can also download the Lead with Hospitality Action Plan. Absolutely complimentary to you. It's a gift from me to you. And also, you can, when you do that, you'll receive weekly emails from us, just little notes of encouragement every Tuesday morning, bringing these topics and keeping them top of mind. So it's leadwithhospitality.com. Hope to see you soon.
Got it. Well, listen, everybody, if you are ready to level up your leadership, pick up Taylor's books. Visit his website at I just lost my notes. Leadwithhospitality.com and subscribe to your Partner in Success Radio for more episodes with my guest experts. And let us know in the reviews how you're leading with hospitality in your own life. Taylor, thank you. I look forward to having you back here again soon.
Thank you.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.